Hello Internet! It's time for another Wednesday serial, and I want to do a quick run through of last week's comics to tell you what I thought about a pretty big week for me. First up, Birds of Prey! Awesome as always, and if you're a Bat fan, there's a great moment in there that puts Batman in the place that he always should be. Booster Gold 40 is a great introduction to the character if you're not familiar with him, so I definitely say pick it up if you don't know, because it's also leading into another story arc. It's this well-weaved thing, and I have to say it was just fun to read despite knowing his origin already. Justice League Generation Lost is moving along. It's a great issue, but if you haven't been reading it, you're gonna be lost. That's probably the problem with this bi-weekly one that's planning to end so many issues in. But if you haven't been reading it, I think there's trades coming along soon. It's definitely a worthwhile story, and there's a reason everyone's hailing this as a good successor to 52 as far as that whole coming out regularly bit. Rebels 24, this is the last issue, kind of the slow build back to another Starro encounter, and it's going to be good. And even though this issue is a bit slower, there's a great moment with Lobo in here that you just have to check out, and just tons about this issue that just made me realize why Rebels is so great. Admittedly, if you're not reading it, it's easy to see why people could get a little lost, but this is a book that's worth keeping up with and worth diving into and trying to figure out some of the little nuances. Secret 629 is basically the second part of what began in the most recent Action Comics issue, and it's interesting and it's fun to read, and frankly stands on its own. You don't really need to read the Action Comics issue, but it's highly recommended. But by reading the two, despite the fact that Cornell's a good writer, you can really see why Gail Simone is just the master of characterization with the comparison between those two issues. Thunder Agents 3. I am finally sold on this book. The guys at my comic shop said the art wasn't so great, but with the $2.99 price point, try it out. And they're finally playing off of the fact that there was an older Thunder Agents comics and bringing it in. And I know nothing about it, but with this issue, this is why I think legacy in comics and continuity isn't a bad thing and can get readers in, just because they're playing on things that can be built upon, which you can go read up on if you want, but if not, you can be just taken along for the ride and pleasantly surprised by what comes along, and it just turns out to be a fun read. Now, this was a really well-crafted, done story. It's still really serious, so if you really need levity in comics like I normally do, really hard to get in, but it's really interesting once now that the ball's getting going. Spider-Man 651 was good. It's kind of wrapping up this arc. A lot of people are saying this is the new status quo. I call shenanigans. This has been done time and time again. You lift Peter Parker up just so you can tear him down, because you can't keep driving him down like he's Matt Murdock. But it's fun, the art is really cool, and it's starting to take itself, I guess, a little bit more seriously, because I know certain people were not so happy with some of the humor that was being used, but I think it's all coming together, and it's really starting to take off to see where Slott wants Spider-Man to go, and not just him kind of finding the ground and coming out of one of the most interesting times in Spider-Man's history. Black Panther, The Man Without Fear. Now, reading this, I did notice something that a lot of people have been saying. The dialogue at times seems a bit off, and if you read it out loud, it sounds a little choppy to awkward at times. I think some of it's purposeful because T'Challa's trying to be fitting in. He's not supposed to be fitting in so great, and then you have Luke Cage come in this episode, issue, what have you, and the way he talks is definitely him, and so I'm thinking these are purposeful choices, but it does feel a little off. But this is an interesting read. It's nothing that I'd really push on anyone. If you're kind of more for the street level sort of thing, you want to see how Black Panther would be different from Daredevil, that's exactly what this is addressing. And it's also addressing the fact that T'Challa is a great character, but also a very proud character, not always willing to accept help or do things, which causes more problems than it does help things at times, which is interesting to see, especially in Marvel, where, you know, almost everyone's an Avenger and all that, and seeing a character that's saying, no, I'm doing this, is nice to see. Then Captain America, the Korvax Saga, 2 of 4, Ben McCool writing, and it's moving along fast. I'd almost argue too fast, which is something I almost never argue in comics anymore. But this feels like it's being rushed through, and it's taking Captain America into this cosmic realm, and you're just, things are flying by, and it feels like for the scale that it's going for, the weight isn't necessarily there. That's my complaint, but it's a fun read, and I definitely say go check it out. I'm definitely generally a big McCool fan thus far, and this isn't letting down. I just have a feeling that this actually should have been 6 issues rather than 4, and I'm not sure how all that back end works. I'm sure Marvel's rushing something out to push Captain America more than he should be with the movie coming out, but with saying that this should be 6 instead of 4 issues, I don't think that would go against it. I don't know, but it's a fun read, and I can't say for certain because I'm not reading them right now, but probably the most fun Captain America book that's coming out currently. So my camera's freaking out because it's daylight and it doesn't know how to handle that. I don't know how to handle that, but I'll catch you all soon with another comic review.